All right, this video we're going to talk a little bit about the shutdown this past weekend. I've been meaning to make this for the past couple days, talk about a few things, but kind of want to see how some other stuff played out first. The shutdown this weekend, everybody understands that it was ridiculous. It was actually uncalled for. It was about a budget deal to fund the government, the child's health care initiative that the House passed, funding that for the next 6 years. And basically a bunch of horse malarkey. All right. If you go back to my budget video, you're going to see that once we change the system, the federal tax, consumption tax, restructure the government, we're not going to have these problems anymore. All right? The budget is going to be, the government will be fully funded on an annual year-to-year basis. The federal budget is from the fiscal year. Federal fiscal year is October 1st to September 30th. So we're only 3 months into this fiscal year, and we're already fighting over budgeting for another week, a month. This is ridiculous. We can't, and I heard this many times over the weekend talking about, we cannot keep operating this way. Our military can't keep operating this way. Now, I'm going to say this, and a lot of people was getting, and I'm going to make some people mad at me here, okay? A lot of people were getting upset that Congress was shut down the government, and the military wasn't going to get paid, but Congress still was. All right, there's a little slight fallacy about that, okay? Federal paydays are on the 1st and the 15th of every month, okay? The troops did not lose any money under this shutdown, all right? Their pay was not taken away from them on this shutdown. The troops got paid on the 15th. That was, the weekend before was military payday. All right. They'd already received that paycheck. They don't get another paycheck until next week on the 1st. So therefore, as long as the government shutdown was over with before the 1st, the military still gets their full pay. I was in the Marine Corps during the shutdowns during Clinton's time, and I never missed a paycheck because the shutdowns were back up and operational before the military paydays. So, and I know that's going to take away from the detractor from some people on the right, who was trying to blame the Congress and Schumer for shutting down and taking away military pay. Now, granted, had the shutdown went long enough till February 1st, then yes, the troops would have been hurt. But as best I know, the Congress gets paychecks on the 1st and the 15th as well. That's the reason why they were still getting paid, so to speak, because their paychecks are in coincidence with the military's. Now, how it would have worked had it went till the 1st, whether they wouldn't have got a paycheck or not, I don't know. Me personally, my policy, what I'd like to see happen is if we have a government shutdown, then if the military is not going to be paid, no government payroll. The payroll department of the federal government is closed during the shutdown. That means nobody gets paychecks. Direct deposit. If you're a government employee, if you're a congressman, senator, president, whoever, and the government is shut down, then there's no direct deposits. There's nothing for payroll. Okay. If one person ain't get it, nobody gets it, and they don't get to decide. Well, we'll exempt these people and not these. But that's a whole other point. What I want to refer back to is and I'm going to touch on this slightly because it's basically old news now. It's done and over with. The Democrats done screwed up because they intentionally shut the government down. Now, you heard that they were trying to blame the Republicans. Oh, it's the Republicans' fault. And the reason why they were doing that kind of reverts back to the 2013 shutdown as well, is that they said, everybody was saying, oh, the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, and they still got the government shut down. That's not 100% true, folks. The Republicans do control the House and the White House. The Republicans do not technically control the Senate. Yes, they have a 51-47 majority over the Democrats. A 51 vote majority is not control. It just means there's 51 Republicans to 47 Democrats. The problem is when you have a situation like this that requires 60 votes, the control is all in the Democrats' hands. Because without the Democrats, some of them coming onto the Republican side, then the bill's not getting passed. And what happens is Chuck Schumer, he's out there doing everything he can to keep the government from operating properly. He has the control over the Democrats. So really, technically the Democrats still control the Senate. Part of why it's so important in this coming election that we put more Republicans in there. If we want to see Donald Trump get his agenda through, then the Democrats, we need to take the Democrats out of the control of the Senate. They have enough votes in the House that so the Republicans do control the House, not just a majority, but they can control it. But the Democrats still technically can control the Senate. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way. And I was arguing with a college professor the other day about this. It was like, it was kind of funny. He's a Democrat, he's a liberal. And so I only argue a certain amount with those folks, and then it's just like, okay, you can throw all the facts. He was sitting there telling me how many shutdowns the government's had under Bush and all this other stuff. And the last government shutdown was in 2013. And that was under Obama. And again, the Democrats did that one. Now, I know everybody believes the Republicans did. But it was actually a Democrat control. As a matter of fact, it was very specifically Harry Reid and President Obama shut the government down. And let me explain this, because I'm going to get a lot of people's heads going to explode on that remark. What happened is it was over the budget again, and President Obama come right out and said, I will not sign a budget if it does not include spending money for this, and this. Now, we the people put Republicans in charge of the House back in 10 so that we could curb so they could curb some of the Democrats' spending. In other words, they're supposed to say, no, you can't spend money on that. Okay? And what happened was, I relate it to like buying a car. Okay? The budget was the car. The dealership was Obama and Harry Reid. And the Republicans were the buyer. Now, you go on a car lot to buy a car. Let's say, for example, the retail price of that car is $40,000. Okay? So you go in there and you see the car and you like it. The dealership says it'll be $40,000. And you go like, I'm not, we all know we ain't going to pay that much money for the car. So you come in and say, okay, I'll offer you $25,000. Now you know dang good and well they're not going to take that $25,000 bid. But the point is, it's a start of a negotiation. The whole time period, Obama and Harry Reid kept, well, the Republicans won't negotiate with us. And that's the reason why the Republicans got blamed, other than the fact the media, Obama said it was the word of God, and the media said that's what it was. So anyhow, so they made this offer, and they knew it wasn't going to go. All right? But what happens is you go to the dealership and say, well, I'll give you $25,000 for it. And the dealership, they're going to say no. But maybe the dealership will come out and say, well, I'll tell you what, we can go $38,000. Well, see, that's called negotiating. And then you come back and say, well, no, I'll tell you what, I'll do $30,000. And then they come back and drop a little bit more. And you work it back and forth till you come up to a spot that you agree in. Well, that's not what happened in 2013. Obama literally was like, it's $40,000. And you come back, and the Republicans come in and say, well, we'll give you $25,000. And he was like, no, $40,000. And they kept, okay, say, well, we'll give you $38,000. They gave in a little bit of what he wanted. And he said, no, it's this. and everything, and the Republicans literally passed, I think, it's like 5 or 6 budgets, giving a little more to what he wanted during that time period, up until the day the shutdown was happening. But this is what happened. Every budget, everyone that the Republican House passed, Harry Reid, Democrat, leader of the Senate, put him on his desk and refused to even put him up for a vote in front of the Senate. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Obama said he wouldn't do anything unless it literally spent all the money that he wanted to spend. And Harry Reid knew any budget that he put up in front of the vote of the Senate, if it passed the Senate, would go to President Obama's desk. He'd have to veto it, which would make him look like an idiot. And Harry Reid refused to do that. So, and we ended up with a government shutdown. And what ended up happening over the long haul, what brought the government back online, was the Republicans finally caved to everything that Obama wanted in order to bring the budget, because they were receiving so much flack that they shut the government down. If you look at the actual truth was, Harry Reid and President Obama shut the government down in order to be able to get everything that he make the Republicans give him everything he wanted to spend money on, because he was able to. He had the ear of the media, and everything was the Republicans' fault. Anything he said was the Republicans' fault. All right. As a matter of fact, under Obama, I'm surprised that they didn't figure out a way to blame the Republicans for Benghazi and Fast and Furious and the IRS scandal and everything else. And that's the reason why everybody's so upset with the Republicans in Congress right now still, is the fact that when we put the Republicans in charge of the Senate in 2014, they didn't do what we wanted them to do. We put them in charge of both the House and the Senate so that they would start passing legislation, putting it on Obama's desk, and make him veto it. And that way it would show his true colors and how irresponsible he was. But they didn't, because that 13 shutdown burnt them. They were so afraid, because like I said, anything that happened, they got blamed, because Obama blamed them. Therefore the media come out and everybody in the country thought it was their fault. So they were skittish, they're gun shy, and they still are to a point. And that's why, but they're starting to come out of their shell now that they got someone that supports the agendas in the White House. But that was the problem with the 13 shutdown. Same problem with this shutdown. The Democrats have control of the Senate. That's all there is to it. The Democrats have the control in the Senate, because anything that requires 60 votes, the Democrats as a party has already said they're going to obstruct everything. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to even try to work with President Trump on anything. And I believe, folks, that's why we can kick the Democrats' butt come this election. We can knock the crap out of them and put Republicans in charge of the Senate. Then President Trump can really, really explode on his agenda. Under my budget plan, though, and I want to refer back to that because that's kind of what I want to wrap this up with, is when you have, under my plan, you have a balanced budget with a surplus, then there's not going to be anything like this going on. Every year, 1st of July, every department in the government will be required to submit their next fiscal year's budget to the Congress for approval. Using the restructuring program that I've explained, and how each department will be funded, then the reason why they have to have it to Congress by the 1st of July is it'll give Congress the opportunity to spend 3 months reviewing the budgets and making sure they're not trying to stick in this or that or the other that's not actually dealt with the involvement of funding the department to do its job. Okay? The IRS won't be spending any more tens of thousands of dollars on some party out in Las Vegas, or no, I'm sorry, that wasn't the IRS. That was what was it? That was the budget office or something like that. And then the IRS had $60,000 for a training in video where they used parodies of TV shows. Now if they need to make something like that, or they need to have an organizational meeting, um, yeah, they can stick that in there. If it's an annual thing, we have an organizational meeting on an annual thing. Um, they can have it in there. It'll be reviewed by Congress and approved as a part of their budget, but it's going to be scrutinized. We're not just going to have this horse manure out there. But that way, like I said, if they have their budgets in by July 1st, so that way the whole government is funded. When the president signs the budget on the 1st of October, it will be for the entire fiscal year till next November. We're not going to be sitting here in February and March and January crying and arguing about budgets. And something else too, and this is, it never dawned on me until just this little video here. I'm thinking about it. The child health insurance thing that was passed. It was a 6-year budget for this thing. It just made me realize the part of the problem with the budgeting in Congress and why we have these shutdowns is because they put certain programs on a 2, 3, 4, 5-year budget. They plan on spending this amount of money over this amount of time to operate this thing. Okay? You can't do that, really, because prices change. The operations of that business, that organization, is probably going to change over the next 3 to 6 years. If inflation raises prices, if part of the price of the budget of that organization is fuel for the vehicles that they use to drive around to accomplish the job, what's the gas prices going to be in 5 years? Okay, we don't know. So how are you set down? Well, this is fully funded for the next 6 years. No, it ain't, because they could end up running out of that money. But right now we're spending money for something 6 years from now that we don't even have money for stuff we need today. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend the budget on an annual basis. Once a year for the next year, this is it. And in each year, we submit a new budget. We do that in our homes. We don't sit here and budget over, well, we're going to budget for this project for over the next 6 years. Okay? We budget on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis, or for the year sometimes. Some people do. Businesses, budget like that. Now, they may put out a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, but they don't try to set aside money for operations for the next 5-10 years for a particular section. A business funds the business for the next year. Okay? So we need to start looking at doing stuff. We're going to get that out of there. That's and fund the programs on an annual basis. So that way we have a more solidified budget. And we're not going to have these shutdowns. We're not going to have arguments over spending money. It's going to be already, the idea is the federal budget is to fund the operations of the government. Now, if there's other things that we need to spend money on, pet projects or whatever, we can take, we're going to have a surplus, so we can maybe take 10 or 15% of the surplus and set it aside every year to budget out for miscellaneous stuff. That way everybody can still kind of work. Some states, occasionally a state may require some extra money for something. You never know. There's things that happen. You got an old bridge, it's been around for years. It's been in good shape, and all of a sudden they go out and inspect it and find cracks in it. And it has to be repaired. And that's not an expense that the state had already figured in. I want to talk a little bit later about the spending of the money on infrastructure and stuff. But that may be something that comes up. We all have that. It's called unexpected spendings, however you want to put it. So when you have stuff like that come out, maybe you're going to need to send that state some extra money to take on this project that they hadn't planned on. So having that extra little bit set off to the side to do that would be maybe something we could do too. A lot of that has come down to just let's get the basics done, and then we can worry about the little other stuff. So, but the shutdown this week was done for stupid reasons. It should have never been done. It didn't need to be done. And I think that if we fix the budget the way I talk about, there's nothing that can be done. There's no reason for a shutdown in the future because we're going to budget on an annual basis for a whole year, and then we ain't got to worry about it. Again, like I said, it's the middle of January. The fiscal year just started 3 months ago, 3.5 months ago on the 1st of October, and we're already out of money. Really? Think about that. Let's fix this, okay?